gift of self-love. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Hi. I was just thinking about that song we just sang. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? I like to think about that sentence. How could we ever believe that we are anything less than beautiful? And how could anyone fail to notice? How could we fail to notice? You know, we can't put all the power out there hoping and expecting that people will see the beauty and truth that we are. So today we're going to talk about self-love and also what self-love has to do with strength. So when you hear the term self-love, what do you think of? You know, a lot of times we think of self-love, okay, I'm going to take really good care of myself, I'm going to eat really well, I'm going to set up boundaries, I'm going to exercise, you know, all this stuff about self-love, and it sounds so good and it sounds so spiritual. But then what happens when you don't do those things? You know, I didn't eat healthy today. I wasn't kind to myself. I wasn't that nice to other people. Then all of a sudden we get into the self-hatred or self-condemnation. So when we talk about self-love, we want to ask ourselves, who are we loving? What self are we loving? It seems that we have two selves. We know that that's not true because wherever God is everywhere, there's no place where God cannot be. But living on the physical plane, it could feel as if we have two selves. We hear about our Christ self, our true self. So I like to talk about that. That's the vertical. So if you think about the vertical, your connection to source, your true self, your Christ self. And then we also have on the horizontal, our worldly conditioned self. And this is who we learn to be from the culture, the community, the family we grew up with, what we heard, you know, the judgments we hear about ourselves, just kind of the noise of the world. So I like to think of it as our true self, our Christ self, and then our worldly conditioned self, the vertical and the horizontal. And inside of the horizontal, we live in duality. So that's when we're always kind of walking that line between, are we good, are we bad, are we smart, are we stupid, are we rich, are we poor? You know, it's that duality. I like to, there's an exercise that I would always, not an exercise, but a thing I would talk about in class a lot, where if we say, I want to lose weight, I want to be on a diet, I want this, I want my body to be different, oftentimes what we'll do is we'll go over here and we'll eat nothing but carrots. Like carrots, 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 I want to lose weight. And then all of a sudden we'll go, screw it, I'm going to eat a cake. I deserve a cake. And then we eat the whole cake and we kind of get a stomach ache. And we go, okay, I'm back to the carrots. And this is what it is to live in duality, when we're like going too extreme. Instead of really feeling our wholeness, our true self is, the truth is we have an infinite number of food combinations to eat. And when we really align with our healthy body, we naturally gravitate to what feels good. But when we get in that duality place, we're like all over the place. I was thinking about this last night. I was in bed, all cozy, reading. It just, it feels so good. And then I remember every day lately I've been trying to walk a little bit more each day. You know, just for fun, a little bit more each day. And I look at my Fitbit thing, it's like, I didn't make it. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm gonna get out of bed and I'll just walk in place till I hit that goal. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's the horizontal. Like, what, am I bad if I didn't reach my steps? Am I good if I reach my steps? Instead of just, I'm gonna continue to read because it feels really good. So again, that would be our true self. Years ago, I used to listen to Dr. Laura. She was pretty kind of extreme Christian. Anyway, I just really liked listening to her. My kids were little, and I would in the car. And I remember one day she was saying, the problem, self-esteem. Everyone's talking about self-esteem. She goes, that's the problem. Everyone's so full of themselves. I don't think what we need is self-esteem, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, because I've been a coach for many, many years, and it's like, that is not my experience. Usually what happens is it's the opposite. You know, we think we're not enough. Almost everybody, not almost, everybody I've ever talked to over the last, I don't know, 35 years or whatever, we have the same conversation going that we're not enough. There's something wrong with us. And then we also have the same conversation going that we're too much. You know, I'm too loud, I'm too this. So when you think about it, we have about this much room to live. You know, between not enough and too much, just a tiny, tiny place for us to be. And so to experience true self-love, it's really about living in the vertical. We want to be aware of what is this life that we've been given to live? What is the beauty and truth of what we are? That's what we're here to live. That's true self-love. It's not trying to fix or self-improve what's on the horizontal. And I think to experience true self-love, we need spiritual understanding, discernment, and obedience. So spiritual understanding is getting back to the truth. That we are made in the image and likeness of God. That cannot be changed. It's an absolute. It's what we are. And then discernment is we have to know the difference between our true self and our false self, between our Christ self and our worldly conditioned self. And then obedience is really submitting to God's will, which is God's will is not separate from our will. So it's living in obedience. It's following the guidance that we receive, harmonizing with the truth that we are. So often we're half in, half out. You know, we may come to church on Sunday and it feels good and we hear all this good stuff. And then out in the world, we turn on the news, you know, and we come back Sunday. But really, to live self-love is really, can you live in that God consciousness throughout the week? Jesus taught us that the kingdom of God lives within. So that means that wherever we are, God is. There's no separation. We have to really get that, I think, to have self-love, that we are loved, we are love. What we are is love. Jesus also said, abide in me and I in you. And this abiding happens in the vertical. It doesn't happen in the horizontal. And we know that because our life feels very different when we're living in the horizontal, when we believe that we're separate from God. We're meant to live from our divine nature rather than a limited fear-based identity. Jesus also said to let go of our burdens and follow him, because we don't have any burdens in the vertical. Our burdens live on the horizontal. Our burdens are in the world. They're in the duality. What lives in the horizontal, and you may recognize some of this, is bitterness, resentment, judgment, self-righteousness, self-pity, false humility, pride, arrogance, fear, control. When we live from that consciousness, the consciousness of fear, judgment, we say, well, I should love myself more. But we're on the wrong track. Self-love isn't located in the horizontal because our true self lives in the vertical. There's nothing in the horizontal we desire. There's nothing to fix or change about ourselves. True self-love is not trying to move the chairs on the Titanic, tweak this, make this a little better, make this a little better. True self-love is recognizing and honoring your true self, the Christ within you. rather than being weighed down by conditioned beliefs of inadequacy. You always know if you are saying something about yourself that's not true, because there's a diminishment in it. So if you ever catch yourself diminishing yourself in any way, it's not based on truth. It can't possibly be based on truth. And it's the same thing with other people. If you find yourself diminishing anyone in any way, it's not based on the truth of who they are. Sure, judgments, it may appear that someone or even yourself is less than whole, but it can't be true. It's just not possible. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. If you're seeing yourself through murky glasses, you can't help but see your neighbor in the same way. It's not possible. If you don't know the beauty and truth of what you are, you can't possibly see it in another person. You know, a lot of times we think self-love, it may sound self-centered, but think about it. When you're living as your true self, what are you giving? You're giving the truth of what you are. You're giving the love that you are. And yet when we're living on the horizontal, what are we giving? We're giving other people our anger, our bitterness, our resentment, our fear. So self-love in the vertical is the highest and best of what you could give another person. And true self-love is knowing there's nothing to fix or change about yourself. You're already complete. You don't have to manifest anything. We're always talking about manifesting. But when you're living in the vertical, you don't have to manifest everything. You just have to be aware, and you have to listen. And listen, because self-love removes the blocks from what is already yours to have. Everything you want. I remember when I first heard this, like, yeah. You know, it wasn't very satisfying. But now over time, I started to get everything we're seeking, everything we're chasing, everything we say is missing is actually already here, but we have to awaken to that and have the realization, actually claim it. And so how do you know what's yours to have, to experience? You listen. You listen to the calling of your soul. You listen to the still small voice within. It's not something you have to locate outside of yourself. Your soul's calling is the unique way God expresses through you. It's very personal to you. That's what I like about really listening to how is God, how is Source speaking to me? And it's the way love, wisdom, and inspiration flow most naturally through you. So spiritual understanding is having the context, the vertical and horizontal, the context in which we live. And then discernment is, again, who you are and who you're not. So there's a very simple exercise I do in my classes, and I know it's really helpful to discern between your true self and your compromised self. And it's something that you could just do every day, moment by moment, but you start to notice what pulls you, what calls you forth. And it could be like, wow, I had a conversation with this person that was so inspiring. And then you ask yourself, why was that so inspiring? Who was I being? And you're getting clarity and insight into your true nature. Just kind of notice throughout the day what's calling you forth. That's really Source within you, communicating to you, like over here, warmer, you know, but you're just noticing. And what's important is to do the exercise without any judgment at all. There's nothing you have to do on the physical plane. You're just more clearly learning to listen to and discern the voice of Source within you. So you notice how life is calling you forth all the time. And it doesn't matter if it's something small or something big. And then also you notice those times during the day when you feel the push, the constriction, like, oh, it's driving me crazy, oh my God, ah! You know, so when you feel that tightness and that constriction, what that means in that moment, you've turned away from Source. All of a sudden you got out of the vertical and now you're in the horizontal. Because remember, we're in the vertical, we feel the pulls, and when we're in the horizontal, we feel the constriction. And it's not like, oh, I should have more pulls. There's wisdom in our resistance, because in those moments, we have a misunderstanding of source and a misunderstanding of our relationship to source. So it's really important just to notice, wow, why was that so painful? Oh yeah, because I thought I had to withhold who I was. Or, you'll start to notice that God speaks to us every moment of every day, but we have to be listening and noticing. And then the way to bridge, moving from the horizontal to the vertical, we do that through understanding, compassion, and forgiveness. And understanding why something is a push for us, but also what I've noticed working with people is every time we feel a push, a constriction in that moment, we have a misunderstanding of source and our relationship to source. So it looks like there's something happening in the world that's causing us to react that way. And in that moment, we're like, oh, I forgot that God was everywhere present. God's in charge. I thought that person had power. I thought that person had power. I thought I was powerless. That's where the pain is. It's not from the circumstances, from in that moment, the misunderstanding of truth. But what happens with understanding, the deeper we go into understanding, we start shifting away from judgment. So a lot of times when we're stuck in those constricted places, we start judging ourselves, we start judging other people, and then it's like cement. We're all locked up. But if we could go deep into the understanding, integrating with spiritual principles, all of a sudden what happens is we start to feel compassion, the softening of compassion. It's like, oh, things start to loosen a bit, and they soften. And then what naturally follows compassion is forgiveness, where we're able to give up that misunderstanding and get back into the vertical with source. And what's fun about following your pulls, you want to notice that they're very individual and specific to you, because what may be a pull for you is a push for someone else. So like a person who loves quiet time may be like, yes, this is such a pull. I'm sitting here, I'm reading, there's nobody around, this feels awesome. And then someone else who's more extroverted could be like, this is such a pull, these people just came over, I'm so excited. Like it just starts to reveal who you are, what's your natural rhythm, what's your divine nature. And then obedience is when we're listening and we're taking inspired action on the guidance we're receiving. So sometimes people say, oh, if I just think about this stuff, I'll probably want to lay on the couch all day. It's not true. We love to give. It's our nature to give, but we don't want to give just anything. We don't want to give our compromised self. We want to give from the vertical. We want to give our true self. So the obedience part is just really giving yourself permission to act on the inspiration you're receiving, to trust that voice within you, to follow that guidance. Listening is so important. So having the spiritual understanding to know what you are listening for, because you can't listen to everything. The world is very loud and it's very noisy. So if you don't have any filters on, the peanut gallery is just going to be like, it's just too much. You have to be so grounded in your truth and the truth of your being. So you decide what comes into your consciousness. You decide the purity of the consciousness you want to live from. And then the discernment, you're distinguishing between your true self and false self, and then having the courage to step out in faith, to take that inspired action, to really trust source. And it's not that we're going to do this all the time. I mean, we bounce back and forth, but what happens is you kind of start to develop a muscle. Am I going to be loyal to the world, the noise of the world? Am I going to be loyal to my past conditioning? Am I going to be loyal to my past limiting beliefs, thoughts that diminish me? Or am I going to be loyal to the source of my being? Am I going to let God live through me? That's the moment-by-moment decision we have to make. So what can you expect from living in the vertical? The first is deep inner peace. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. So that is the peace that lives in the vertical. That peace does not live in the vertical. Does not live in the horizontal. Remember, everything we want is located in the vertical. Everything we want is located in Christ consciousness. And another thing is increased confidence and clarity. You trust your decisions because they are aligned with your values, with the truth of your being. And living with purpose. There's a purpose and attraction to your life. You start to feel traction. So on the horizontal, we just kind of spin out. We do a lot of activity. We do a lot of fixing. We do a lot of rewinding and redoing, and it goes round and round. But in the vertical, there's attraction. In the vertical, it's purposeful. Another thing that happens is your faith deepens, knowing that you are divinely guided and that you are never alone. You find you can accept challenges with grace and truth. And last, you experience your strength, your inner strength, the strength that lives within you. Jesus talked about humility and strength, and it can sound like a paradox, but it's not really. He said, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Little children don't live from the consciousness of bitterness, resentment, judgment, self-righteousness, self-pity, false humility, pride, arrogance, fear, control. Those are things that get added in the worldly condition when we try to protect ourselves and defend ourselves from other people. Self-love is being centered in God. It's a gift that you can allow yourself to receive. It's a choice to make of where you want to live from. Moment by moment, we have the opportunity to make that choice. Matthew 16:25, Jesus says, "For what profit is it to a person to gain the whole world and yet lose your soul?" So do you want to listen and follow your soul's calling or the noise of the world? Jesus also says, "Come to me, all ye who labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Christ is in the vertical. Let yourself be loved. Come to truth. Stop working so hard to attempt to fix your false self, to attempt to fix or self-improve what is not broken and what cannot be improved upon. Allow your light to shine. Have the humility to surrender to your Christ consciousness. Surrender to the love that wants to be lived through you and as you. We're not designed to carry the world's heaviest burdens. Allow yourself to be carried, loved, and provided for. Allow your true self to be loved and appreciated. Now it's time for our meditation. Just get comfortable in your chair. Just allow yourself to relax, settle in. Just let everything go. Everything that you're holding. The burdens you're carrying that are not yours to carry. Have the humility to release those burdens. Knowing that there is a source so much greater than our personal self. And yet we are one with that source. Just notice how good it feels just to let go. I have been working too hard. I have been caring too much. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. You are not alone. You are so loved and guided moment by moment. Nothing to figure out. No need to get ahead of ourselves. No need to go back to the past. Right here and right now, you are given everything you need, everything you could possibly desire. There is nothing missing within you, absolutely nothing. You are whole, complete, and perfect, just the way you are. And now as we spend a moment in silence, just feel the joy of your being, your freedom to be the lightness that you are. And now when you're ready, gently bring your awareness back into the room. And open your eyes.